Elizabeth Warren thought she could destroy Elon Musk with socialist talking points about wealth inequality and tax avoidance. The 74-year-old senator had built her career attacking successful entrepreneurs, but she had never faced someone with Musk's combination of wealth, influence, and access to real-time social media data. What she didn't know was that Musk had been quietly analyzing her own financial records and social media engagement, preparing to expose her as the ultimate hypocrite in American politics. Before we dive into this incredible story, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of the explosive political drama we cover. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens when the world's richest man decides to use his own platform to completely destroy a socialist senator with her own data. This wasn't just another Twitter feud. This was the moment when technological power met political power, when data analytics collided with socialist ideology, and when one of the world's most successful entrepreneurs decided to show exactly why politicians shouldn't pick fights with people who own the platforms they're fighting on. The conflict between Elon Musk and Elizabeth Warren had been building for months. As Musk's wealth continued to grow through Tesla's stock price increases and SpaceX's valuation expansion, Warren had become increasingly vocal about what she called obscene wealth concentration and a need for aggressive wealth taxes to fund progressive social programs. Warren, now 74 and serving her third term as senator for Massachusetts, had built her entire political brand around attacking wealthy Americans. Her wealth tax proposals had made her a hero to progressive activists who saw billionaires as the root of America's economic problems. Her Twitter account, with over 5.8 million followers, had become a platform for daily attacks on successful entrepreneurs and calls for massive tax increases on high earners. The senator's strategy was simple but effective. Identify wealthy individuals, attack their success as somehow illegitimate, and use their wealth as evidence that America's economic system was fundamentally unfair. She had successfully deployed this strategy against numerous business leaders, tech entrepreneurs, and investors, building a reputation as someone who fought for the little guy against powerful interests. But Warren had made a critical error in choosing Elon Musk as her latest target. Unlike other wealthy individuals who typically ignored her attacks or responded through traditional media, Musk owned one of the world's largest social media platforms. More importantly, he had access to data analytics that could expose the gap between Warren's public persona and her private reality. Elon Musk, now 52 and worth over $240 billion, had transformed from an entrepreneur focused primarily on building companies to someone increasingly willing to engage in political combat. His acquisition of Twitter for $44 billion had given him unprecedented power to shape public discourse, but it had also made him a target for politicians who viewed his influence as dangerous. The transformation of Twitter under Musk's ownership had been dramatic. He had implemented significant changes to the platform's content moderation policies, reduced censorship of conservative voices, and most importantly for this story, gained access to comprehensive data about user engagement, influence networks, and the financial backing behind major political accounts. What made Musk particularly dangerous as Warren's opponent wasn't just his wealth or his platform ownership. It was his combination of technical expertise, access to real-time data, and willingness to use both in political combat. Unlike traditional politicians who relied on polling and focus groups, Musk could analyze actual engagement data, track influence networks, and identify the sources of political messaging in real time. The confrontation began when Warren posted what would become her most viral attack on Musk yet. On a Tuesday morning in October, she tweeted, "Elon Musk made $36 billion in one day while working families can't afford groceries. Tax the billionaires. Make them pay their fair share. The system is rigged for people like Musk while everyone else struggles." The tweet was typical Warren, emotionally charged, factually misleading, and designed to generate outrage against successful entrepreneurs. Within hours, it had been retweeted over 50,000 times and liked by more than 200,000 users. Progressive media outlets began running stories about Musk's wealth growth, and Democratic politicians started calling for immediate action on wealth tax legislation. But Musk had been monitoring Warren's social media activity for months. and he had noticed patterns in her engagement that didn't match her public image as a grassroots champion of working families. Using Twitter's advanced analytics capabilities, he had been building a comprehensive profile of Warren's online influence network, her financial supporters, and the disconnect between her anti-wealth rhetoric and her own family's financial behavior. What Musk discovered was explosive. Warren's political operation was heavily funded by some of the wealthiest individuals in America, many of whom used sophisticated tax avoidance strategies that made Musk's tax planning look conservative by comparison. More damaging, Warren's own family had benefited enormously from the same rigged system she claimed to oppose. Musk's response came 48 hours after Warren's initial attack, and it would become one of the most devastating social media takedowns in political history. Instead of responding with a defensive tweet or traditional political rhetoric, Musk decided to use his platform's data capabilities to expose Warren's hypocrisy systematically. His first tweet was deceptively simple. Senator Warren, since you're concerned about tax fairness, let's examine who's actually avoiding taxes. What followed was a methodical destruction of Warren's credibility using data that only Musk had access to. His second tweet included a chart showing Warren's campaign financing. Your 2020 presidential campaign received $78 million from donors worth over $50 million each. That's more billionaire money than any other Democratic candidate. Interesting approach to fighting wealth inequality. The chart was devastating because it used Warren's own FEC filings to show that her anti-billionaire rhetoric was funded primarily by billionaires. The data showed that despite her public attacks on wealthy donors, Warren had actually received more money from ultra-high net worth individuals than any other candidate in the Democratic primary. But Musk was just getting started. His third tweet revealed information that Warren had managed to keep largely out of public view. Your family's investment portfolio, disclosed in your Senate financial reports, includes holdings in the same tax-avoiding companies you publicly attack. Tesla stock purchased 2019 to 2022, $340,000. Hypocrisy level, billionaire. The revelation that Warren had personally invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in Tesla stock while publicly attacking Musk and Tesla was politically devastating. It showed that even as she was calling for wealth taxes that would damage Tesla's valuation, she was personally profiting from the company's success. Musk's fourth tweet provided even more damaging information about Warren's financial hypocrisy. Your husband's consulting firm, Bruce Mann LLC, uses the same Delaware incorporation structure you claim allows billionaires to avoid taxes. 2022 tax savings through this structure, approximately $180,000. Do as I say, not as I do. The tweet revealed that Warren's own family was using sophisticated tax planning strategies that she publicly condemned when used by wealthy entrepreneurs. Her husband's consulting business was incorporated in Delaware specifically to take advantage of tax benefits that Warren claimed should be eliminated. But the most devastating revelation came in Musk's fifth tweet, which exposed the source of Warren's wealth in a way that completely undermined her working-class champion persona. Your net worth increased from $3.7 million in 2008 to $12.5 million in 2022. That's a 238% increase during a period when median household wealth grew 16%. Who's really benefiting from the rigged system, Senator? The data showed that Warren had accumulated wealth at a rate far exceeding that of the working families she claimed to represent. Her personal fortune had grown dramatically during her time in politics, raising questions about how someone fighting against wealth inequality had become so wealthy herself. Musk's systematic expose continued with his sixth tweet, which addressed Warren's tax payments directly. Your effective tax rate in 2021, 9.12%. My effective tax rate in 2021, 53.09%. I paid $11 billion in taxes. You paid $120,000. Who's not paying their fair share? The comparison was devastating because it used actual tax data to show that despite Warren's rhetoric about tax avoidance, Musk was paying a far higher percentage of his income in taxes than Warren was. The tweet included links to both of their tax disclosures, making the comparison impossible to dispute. But Musk saved his most damaging revelation for last. His seventh tweet exposed a sophisticated financial network that funded Warren's political operation. Your grassroots campaign is funded by a network of 27 family foundations controlled by billionaires worth a combined $340 billion. Their tax avoidance strategies are documented here. Linked to comprehensive analysis. The pot calling the kettle black. The linked analysis was a comprehensive breakdown of Warren's donor network, showing that her political operation was essentially funded by the same ultra-wealthy individuals she publicly attacked. The document revealed sophisticated tax planning strategies used by her donors that made standard corporate tax planning look simple by comparison. The impact of Musk's Twitter thread was immediate and catastrophic for Warren. Within hours, #Warren Hypocrisy was trending nationally, with millions of users sharing the data Musk had revealed. Conservative media outlets began running detailed analyses of Warren's financial disclosures, while even some progressive commentators expressed concern about the gap between her rhetoric and her reality. The New York Times, generally sympathetic to Warren, published an article titled "Questions Raised About Senator Warren's Financial Disclosures Following Musk Revelations." The Wall Street Journal ran a front-page analysis of Warren's investment portfolio, showing that she had benefited financially from many of the same companies she publicly attacked. More damaging were the reactions from Warren's own supporters. Progressive activists who had donated to her campaigns began questioning whether their money had been used to enrich someone who was already wealthy. Young voters who had been inspired by her anti-billionaire rhetoric felt betrayed by the revelation that her political operation was funded by billionaires. Warren's response was weak and defensive, revealing that she had no effective counter to Musk's data-driven attack. Her reply tweet read, "Elon Musk's desperate attacks can't hide the fact that he's a tax-dodging billionaire who's rigging the system. We need wealth taxes now more than ever." But the response only made things worse, because it ignored all the specific data Musk had presented while repeating the same talking points that had been exposed as hypocritical. Social media users immediately pointed out that Warren hadn't addressed any of the financial disclosures Musk had revealed. Musk's follow-up tweet was brief but devastating. "Senator, you didn't address any of the data I presented. Your Tesla stock holdings, your Delaware tax structure, your billionaire donors, your 9% tax rate. Are these facts incorrect? If so, please provide evidence. If not, perhaps it's time to end the hypocrisy." The challenge was perfect because it forced Warren into an impossible position. She couldn't deny the data because it came from her own financial disclosures, but acknowledging it would destroy her political brand as a champion of working families against billionaire interests. Warren's subsequent attempts to explain her financial situation only made things worse. In a series of follow-up tweets, she tried to distinguish between productive investments and wealth hoarding, but her explanations sounded increasingly desperate and hypocritical. Her tweet explaining her Tesla investment was particularly damaging. "My investment in Tesla represents support for clean energy technology, not personal wealth accumulation. There's a difference between investing in America's future and hoarding wealth." Musk's response was immediate and brutal. "You made $127,000 profit on Tesla stock while calling for policies that would destroy Tesla's valuation. That's not investing in America's future. That's insider trading with extra steps." The accusation of essentially insider trading was devastating because it highlighted the fundamental conflict of interest in Warren's position. She was using her platform as a senator to attack companies while personally profiting from those same companies' success. But Musk's most effective attack came when he began analyzing Warren's social media engagement using Twitter's advanced analytics. His tweet revealed information that completely undermined Warren's claim to represent grassroots opinion. Analysis of Warren's Twitter engagement shows 73% of her retweets come from accounts created after 2020, with suspicious activity patterns consistent with coordinated inauthentic behavior. Grassroots support or manufactured consensus. The suggestion that Warren's social media support was artificially inflated through bot networks and coordinated campaigns was devastating to her credibility as a representative of popular opinion. Musk included detailed analytics showing unusual engagement patterns that suggested significant artificial amplification of Warren's content. The revelation sparked immediate investigations by other social media analysts, who confirmed many of Musk's findings. Independent researchers found that Warren's Twitter engagement showed patterns consistent with organized amplification campaigns, raising questions about whether her online support was genuine or manufactured. As the controversy continued to grow, Warren found herself facing criticism not just from conservatives, but from progressives who felt betrayed by her financial hypocrisy. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, typically a Warren ally, posted a cryptic tweet about the importance of authentic representation that many interpreted as criticism of Warren's billionaire-funded political operation. The damage to Warren's political brand was severe and lasting. Polling showed a significant drop in her approval ratings, particularly among young voters who had been inspired by her anti-wealth rhetoric. Her fundraising declined dramatically as small-dollar donors questioned whether their contributions were meaningful when most of her funding came from billionaires. More importantly, the confrontation had shifted the entire narrative around wealth and taxation. Instead of focusing on Musk's wealth, the conversation had moved to Warren's hypocrisy and the gap between progressive rhetoric and progressive reality. Musk had successfully turned Warren's attack into a broader critique of political hypocrisy and the disconnect between politicians' public positions and their private behavior. The long-term implications of the confrontation were significant for American politics. Musk had demonstrated that owning social media platforms provided unprecedented power to shape political narratives and expose political hypocrisy. His access to real-time engagement data, combined with his willingness to use it aggressively, had created a new form of political warfare that traditional politicians were unprepared to handle. The confrontation also highlighted the vulnerability of politicians whose public personas didn't match their private realities. Warren had built her career attacking successful entrepreneurs, but she had never faced someone with the resources and platform to fight back effectively. Musk's systematic use of data to expose her hypocrisy had created a template for how wealthy individuals could defend themselves against political attacks. For Warren herself, the confrontation represented a significant setback in her political ambitions. Her 2024 presidential campaign, which had been gaining momentum among progressive activists, was derailed by the revelations about her financial hypocrisy. Her credibility as a champion of working families had been permanently damaged by the exposure of her billionaire funding network and her own wealth accumulation. The controversy also raised broader questions about the authenticity of progressive politics. If Warren, one of the most prominent progressive politicians in America, was secretly funded by billionaires and personally benefiting from the same rigged system she claimed to oppose, what did that say about the progressive movement more broadly? Musk's victory in the confrontation was complete and devastating. He had used his platform, his access to data, and his analytical capabilities to expose Warren as a fraud and hypocrite. More importantly, he had done so in a way that was impossible for Warren to deny or explain away, because the evidence came from her own financial disclosures and public records. The confrontation became a case study in how technological power could be used to counter political power. Musk's ownership of Twitter had given him capabilities that no political opponent had ever possessed: the ability to analyze engagement patterns, expose artificial amplification, and present data in real time to millions of users. The lesson for other politicians was clear. Attacking someone who owns the platform you're fighting on is a dangerous strategy, especially when that person has access to data that can expose your hypocrisy. Warren had thought she could use Twitter to attack Musk, but she had ended up giving him the perfect opportunity to destroy her credibility using her own platform. As the dust settled from the confrontation, it became clear that the nature of political combat had fundamentally changed. The traditional model of political attacks, making emotional appeals without fear of systematic factual rebuttal, was no longer viable when opponents had access to comprehensive data and global platforms to share it. Warren's attempt to destroy Musk had backfired spectacularly, but more than that, it had revealed the fundamental dishonesty underlying much of progressive politics. The senator who claimed to fight for working families against billionaire interests had been exposed as someone who was secretly funded by billionaires and personally enriched by the same system she claimed to oppose. The confrontation also demonstrated the power of preparation and strategic thinking in political combat. While Warren had relied on emotional rhetoric and traditional talking points, Musk had conducted months of research and analysis, gathering the data necessary to systematically destroy her credibility. Perhaps most importantly, the confrontation had shown that in the age of social media and data analytics, political hypocrisy was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. Politicians who built their careers on attacking others would need to ensure that their own behavior could withstand the same level of scrutiny they applied to their targets. For Musk, the victory was not just personal but strategic. He had demonstrated that his acquisition of Twitter provided him with unprecedented power to shape political narratives and defend himself against political attacks. The platform that Warren had tried to use against him had become the weapon he used to destroy her credibility. The confrontation between Elon Musk and Elizabeth Warren became more than just a Twitter feud. It became a demonstration of how technological power could counter political power, how data could defeat rhetoric, and how preparation could overcome traditional political tactics. In the end, Warren had learned a harsh lesson about the dangers of picking fights with people who had the resources and platforms to fight back effectively. Her socialist dreams of using wealth taxes to punish successful entrepreneurs had been shattered by her own financial hypocrisy, exposed by the very person she had tried to destroy. The message was clear. In the modern political landscape, authenticity mattered more than rhetoric, and data mattered more than emotion. Politicians who built their careers on attacking others would need to ensure that their own behavior could withstand equally intense scrutiny. Warren's political career would never fully recover from Musk's systematic exposure of her hypocrisy. The senator who had once been considered a potential presidential candidate was reduced to defending her own financial behavior rather than attacking others. Her credibility as a champion of working families had been permanently damaged by the revelation that she was funded by the same billionaires she claimed to oppose. The confrontation had also created a new model for how successful entrepreneurs could defend themselves against political attacks. Instead of ignoring criticism or responding through traditional media, Musk had shown that direct engagement using data and analytics could be devastatingly effective. As Warren retreated from the public eye to deal with the fallout from Musk's revelations, it became clear that the balance of power between politicians and entrepreneurs had fundamentally shifted. The era when politicians could attack successful individuals without fear of effective retaliation was over.